Are you absolutely sure this can't be traced back to us? Simi looked annoyed by my question. I couldn't blame him. He was the type of 15-year-old the government were terrified would hack the national power grid just for kicks, except he was 13. People at school called him a tech nerd, but that didn't come close to describing Simi's skills. Genius would have been more appropriate. Simi was my best friend, but if I could have pulled this off without him, believe me, I would have, and kept 100% of the profits to myself. But I was an ideas man. Perhaps a genius in my own right, considering I was about to make enough money to retire before my 16th birthday, but I needed Simi's talents to execute my plans. "Trust me," Simi said. "We're undetectable. Nobody can find us through the website or trace the paper back to us. It goes through too many offshore accounts. Ready to go live?" I nodded, and Simi hit a button. I suspected Simi was calling money paper to sound like his favorite rappers, but our motherlode would be entirely digital and untraceable. The first night was anticlimactic. I thought we would be inundated with orders, but of the two people that viewed our site, neither used the chat feature to make contact. We ordered pizza and sat in Simi's bedroom, eagerly watching the screen, waiting for a message to come through. But it was digital tumbleweed. I went home that night dejected. Perhaps I wasn't going to make bank after all. But at school the next day, Simi found me in the hall, barely able to contain his excitement. He was bobbing up and down on the spot, like he was about to combust. "We got 3 orders," he said, in something close to a squeal. "Actual orders, not inquiries?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. I hoped Simi would follow suit and quiet down. We had to be careful talking about our venture in public. We couldn't afford to be overheard. Simi nodded. "And they've paid?" I added, needing further clarification. It felt too good to be true after the previous night's disappointment. 2 out of 3, Simi replied. I, too, was barely able to contain myself at this point. I was buzzing, almost bursting with pride. We'd done it. We were going to be rich. We'd never have to work a day in our lives. There'd be no student debt for us, no wasting our lives grinding for some random exec. We could travel the world, do whatever the hell we wanted. Girls would love us, gold diggers especially, but it would be fool's gold to them. But to us, the bounty was real, tangible, already on its digital journey to our accounts. I should probably explain my master plan at this point. You listen to Creepypastas, so I'm sure you've heard of the dark web. If you haven't, it's basically the forbidden side of the internet, where people go to consume content and buy goods that they wouldn't be able to access on the regular web. The gullible use the dark web to find hitmen, assassins, contract killers. Call them what you like. It won't change the fact that 99% of sites offering these services on the dark web are scams. Ours was no exception. Over the next 2 weeks, 55 suckers hired us to knock off their cheating spouses or childhood bullies, each paying upwards of $20,000. As soon as they parted with their money, we ghosted and blocked them from accessing our site again. The money would make its way to us through a series of untraceable accounts. And what were our buyers going to do about it anyway? They could hardly go to their bank or the police and admit they got cheated trying to hire a hitman on the dark web. This is the advantage we had over other scams. If you pretend to be someone's starving family member on a messaging app and the mark parts with $2,000, the bank is sometimes able to recall a portion of the money, if they act fast enough. And 2K versus 20K? You do the maths. We'd been running our operation for 18 days when we got a message from someone with the username Psycho101. The conversation started as normal. Psycho101 asked if we could dispose of 2 people. We said yes, for double the fee, of course. 40K. I expected some pushback or haggling, but Psycho101 agreed instantly. Simi typed our usual reply, saying we would get rid of the targets within 14 days of receiving payment. We claimed it depended on how long we'd need to stake them out before striking. For example, an employed father of 6 would be harder to knock off than a jobless bachelor living alone. We thought adding this information made our venture seem more legitimate. Simi went on to request details about the targets, including their names, addresses, and places of work, plus up-to-date photographs. 3 dots indicated Psycho101 was responding. When the message pinged through, I swear I felt the ground drop beneath me, like a jolting elevator car. My heart grew desperate to escape the confines of my rib cage. It was a photo of me, taken on holiday the previous year. I was smiling on the beach, the ocean behind me. The second image was Simi's most recent school photo. I'd been off sick that day. The 3 dots reappeared. I wasn't surprised by the message that followed, but it still made me sick to my stomach. Wasim Singh, aged 13. James Carter, aged 14. Our home addresses, our school, the names and addresses of our families. I thought you said we were untraceable, I snapped at Simi. I don't know how this happened. You fucking idiot! You've put us both at risk! I knew my anger was unreasonable because I couldn't have done any of this in the first place without Simi's help. He was the only person capable of bringing my vision to life, but he must have made a mistake somewhere. How could he be so careless? He's just messing with us. He's not going to do anything, Simi insisted, but he didn't sound convinced. Block him, I said. Simi hesitated for a moment, but he knew better than to defy me after messing up. What are you doing? I asked, as Simi continued to hammer on the keyboard for longer than it took to block someone. Taking down the site. What? No, not because of one freak. You said yourself he isn't going to do anything. I'm taking it down, Jay. We have no choice. How can you want to continue after this and call me the idiot? I bit back my rage and objections. I didn't want to lose Simi as a friend over this. It wasn't like either of us were spoilt for choice in that department, and we had already made bank. Not as much as I hoped, but more than anyone else our age could dream of making. Working it through in my mind, I figured Simi was right, and we should call it quits before anything else went wrong. I can't believe this is happening to us, Simi mumbled anxiously. Just don't go anywhere alone or be in the house by yourself. You know, just in case, I replied. I called my dad, asking him to collect me from Simi's house, feigning a tummy ache. I didn't want to walk home alone. Simi had offered to walk with me, but then he'd have been on his own on the way back. A week passed, and nothing happened, but it was hard not to feel paranoid. I kept sensing eyes burning into the back of my head, only to find nobody behind me. I couldn't help wondering if every stranger that glanced my way was Psycho101. It was away from home that I felt most on edge, not so much indoors with my parents nearby. Still, I often peered out my bedroom window, looking for anyone loitering outside, and I always double-checked the doors and windows were locked at night, and whenever I was alone in the house. I also removed the spare key from under the plant pot. I took every precaution, so I never expected to wake up to a dark figure looming over me. I didn't have time to react before a sharp pain burst from the side of my neck and my room faded away. I felt sick when I came round, too groggy to recall what happened. I scrambled to sit up when I remembered the dark figure, but after fumbling to switch on the lamp, I realized I was alone in my room. I reached for the backpack beside my bed, taking out the penknife I'd been carrying just in case. I extracted the blade before searching under the bed and in the closet, behind the curtains and in the laundry hamper. All clear. There was nowhere else anyone could hide, at least not in my room. I barricaded the door with a chest of drawers, sweating from the effort by the time I felt safe. It's then that I caught my reflection in the mirror. My hair was gone. So were my eyebrows. I looked like an egg, an alien to my own eyes. I quickly stripped to check the rest of my body, fearing injuries or stolen organs, but my skin was unblemished. I put my pajamas back on and reached for my phone. Simi's name appeared on the screen before I had the chance to call him. "He's been here," he said frantically. We spoke for a few minutes. Psycho 101 had done the same thing to Simi. It could have been a lot worse. He injected us with something that knocked us out for hours. He could have murdered us in our beds, and we wouldn't have been able to lift a finger in self-defense. I wanted to believe this was because he had no intention of doing us serious harm, but it felt more like a warning, a promise of more to come. Before we hung up the phone, we agreed on a plan. I didn't want to give up the money, but it wasn't worth losing my life over. And we didn't know if our families would be targeted. What if Psycho 101 intended to burn our houses down? Simi didn't get his tech skills from his parents. They didn't even know how to copy and paste. My parents were more tech-savvy, but I doubted they'd be able to comprehend what we'd gotten ourselves into. Still, they wouldn't need to understand to be furious. We knew our parents would find out eventually, but we thought our best option was to break the news to Mr. Keeler first. He was our favorite teacher. He always made time for the students. He helped Simi's sister when she was being bullied without making life worse for her. It took a bit of explaining for Mr. Keeler to understand the concept of the dark web, but he listened and asked the right questions until he understood the scale of our venture. He tried unsuccessfully to hide his shock at the money we had made. He seemed more disappointed than impressed, which irritated me. "Are you aware what you've done is highly illegal?" he asked. "You could go to juvie, possibly adult prison after that." "Please, help us," Simi begged. Our parents were called. We were made to send the money back to where it came from. Mr. Keeler and the principal said they wouldn't get the police involved, provided all the money was returned. The principal had a tech expert friend try to trace Psycho 101 and find out his identity, but his methods were unsuccessful. So in the end, Simi briefly reactivated the site and unblocked him, and Mr. Keeler sent him a message saying all the money had been returned and further harassment wouldn't be tolerated. I wasn't sure this was a smart move, but Mr. Keeler pretended we were closer to discovering Psycho 101's identity than we were. The psycho didn't reply. Life found a new normal. At school, the teasing died down once people got used to our new appearance and our hair started to grow back. At home, our parents installed the best cameras and security systems they could afford. I was grounded indefinitely, only allowed out to go to school and help my dad with his gardening business at weekends. I was to work off the money they had spent on security. Simi was grounded too, Our friendship became confined to school hours because his parents banned him from hanging out with me, and his phone and other forms of technology were confiscated. Even in school, our time together was limited because his parents told the teachers they didn't want Simi around me. One of us was removed from all classes we previously shared. It seemed unfair that Simi's parents were blaming me. Their own son was just as culpable. My dad said they probably slept better at night, thinking it was all my fault, and I somehow coerced Simi into criminal activity. I'm now 18 and in college, studying business. Simi and I are still friends on social media, but we don't see each other anymore. His parents still hate me, and he's studying computer science on the other side of the country. You might be wondering why I'm telling this story now. I never intended to share the folly of my youth with anyone, but something happened last night, and I don't know who else to tell. This has taken a long time to type. I could only use one hand because last night I was briefly woken by a familiar sting to my neck. By morning, the fingertips of my left hand had been severed, just below the nail. He's back.